Thank you, Senator Heitkamp. Senator Portman, please, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Burwell, for being here, and thanks for your willingness to sit down and walk through a lot of these issues in advance. You and I talked kind of more about the job than we did about the issues I'm going to raise today, but having had the honor of having that job, I agree with what you said earlier, which is OMB is a place where talented people want to go, ought to be your goal, and you're fortunate because you are inheriting some really talented people. And of the roughly 500 people who were there when I was there, you know, I owe them a lot. They were some of the best and brightest in public service, and they're drawn there for a reason. They care about government efficiency. They care about budgeting. They like balanced budgets. So I know you will use them as great resources. And having been there before, you understand the importance of those of the people in the job. It's a tough job, and it's the only job in the cabinet where you can measure your success not by how popular you are, but how unpopular you are among your fellow cabinet members. And if they start to like you too much, you're not doing your job. So that'll be a good measure for you. Tomorrow I'll be in the Budget Committee, so we'll talk more about the fiscal challenges we face, and hopefully the President's budget will offer some hope tomorrow. So there'll be lots to talk about. You're going to end up being there during an interesting time. But today let's talk about the M in OMB, which is, as you say, a really critical part of the job and sometimes overlooked, and probably was the most fun part of the job for me, and I think will be for you. Senator Heitkamp and Senator Johnson have both raised some great ideas on the regulatory front. You said you're looking for ideas, ways to improve the regulatory environment. Let me give you three really quickly, but get your response to them. One is, how about having a regulatory agenda? For nearly 3 decades, presidents of both parties have published their plans on new regulations twice a year. It's required by an executive order that was issued under President Clinton. You may have been there. It's also required by statute, the Regulatory Flexibility Act. The publication in the spring and the fall is by statute. It's very important because it helps the public and it helps regulated parties to better understand these new rules that are in the pipeline, what they are, helps on potential compliance costs, particularly for small businesses. The spring regulatory agenda, as the title would suggest, is supposed to be published in the spring. And again, it's under statute, April or May. Last year, the spring agenda never showed up, despite the fact that Cass Sunstein, who was the administrator of OIRA, set April 13th as a firm deadline for agencies to submit their spring regulatory plans to OMB. I think it's the first time it had not been released in decades, at least to my recollection. I wrote the President twice to ask where it was, because we're very interested here in this committee to look at that regulatory agenda. I received no reply. Instead, and again without any explanation, OMB simply ignored it and then released a single regulatory agenda on Friday, December 22nd, after the election, incidentally. So in your briefing for this hearing, have you learned why the administration chose not to issue a regulatory agenda in the spring, or for that matter in the fall? And will you commit to us today that, since this committee is interested in this information, that you will produce these regulatory agendas on time as required by law and executive order?
Senator, I think at the root of your question there are sort of 2 parts. One is responsiveness in terms of some of your interactions with OMB, and I look forward, if I am confirmed, to be responsive in terms of getting back to you, as I said, in terms of answering questions in the form of a dialogue. In terms of
my letter was to the President, not to the OMB Director, but I didn't hear back from the President. But do you commit to send us those regulatory agendas on time under statute?
What I commit to is understanding I don't know what the reasons were. As a private citizen, one of the things that's different than the last time that I was here for confirmation for a position at OMB is I was in the government. And so as a private citizen, I've not had the opportunity to be briefed on deliberations within the government.
Okay.
So
I would suggest a simple yes. I mean, this is something that's always been done. Ms. Burwell, when you were there, it was done. Are you saying that you cannot commit that you will give this committee and the American people the regulatory agenda that's required by law?
Senator, because I don't know the reason that it wasn't done, what I can commit to do is do my best to get it here. Because I don't know the facts behind what happened, that's why I'm uncomfortable making a commitment when I don't know the facts around the issue.
Really?
So,
okay.
My commitment
Think
is...
about that, Mr. Chairman.
My commitment is...
Let's talk about something else then.